are gonna get started on our Lunch and Learn today. 50 niches for real estate is the topic. And I'm gonna show you actually 50 different ways to stand out in this upcoming new market so you can finally claim your piece of the real estate pie. And if you are on here live, you have a chat icon. By all means, feel free to use it and say hi. The goal is always for us to end up in all 50 states eventually for the Lunch and Learns. So they are nationally, and with that, I think it's always fun to see who is here. And then I'm gonna also drop a resource later on in the chat. So let's get this one here up on the screen just a little bit bigger so everybody can see it. And then I hope you have your lunch. I hope you have a pen and paper, and we're gonna dive straight in. And as usual, my goal with these classes is obviously for you to have a plan of action when you leave. And I would personally love a review. We do put these on completely free for real estate agents. So if you want to leave us an honest review, I'm a mom, so I will bribe you to do that for simply saying, leave us an honest review. And if we provided you with value, we would love to hear it. If you think there's things that you would like change, we would love to hear that too. But obviously we do all thrive for, a 5-star review rating. Now you can text the word review right now, just in case you have to hop off a little earlier. And we do send all of our honest review participants a thank you gift, which is right here on the screen. We call this our Business Builder Box, which is essentially a referral and repeat system in our box that our members receive. So for those of you that have been wondering what's in the box, let me show you. This one here is what's inside the box. We have postcard templates in them, note cards. We do sometimes put books in them, so business building tools. Sometimes it's just more for the desk organization, anything to really build your business. And that is our way of saying thank you for taking the time, leaving us a review. So if you are inclined to leave us an honest review, text the word review to 844-950-3580, and we will be sending these out as a thank you for taking the time. All right. So let's go ahead and talk about 50 niches for real estate in 2025 and beyond. I want you to discover these 50 ways, not because I want you to implement 50 things. I want you to figure out what aligns with what you like and then go for it. So obviously there is a quick disclaimer, as with any of our classes, these are for educational and informational purposes. You got to talk to your broker of what you can and cannot do. I am a licensed instructor in the state of Illinois, so hence what I can do here might be different from what you can do in California, okay? Now, I also think it is just right for you to have a next step. Attending classes is awesome. I think we do need to do that in real estate. Attending classes without an agenda afterwards could potentially be a big waste of time, and I don't want that. And for you is to figure out, where do I go from here? Do I need to dive deeper into a topic? Do I need to YouTube something? Do I need to Google something? Do I need to take more classes? Or do you feel very, very aligned with what's going on? Do you maybe just want to start reading more on that topic? I think sometimes there's a difference between video and reading, just because sometimes it's more specialized knowledge you get through a book. And then obviously for me, it's direct mail. So if direct mail is on your agenda for 2025 and beyond, then we do have our mailer bootcamp coming up as well. So that is what my goal is. Every time I host a class, I want somebody to leave here knowing, what's my next step? Where do I go from here, right? Do I have to investigate a little bit more if that's what I like? Do I want to really dive deeper into a topic and start reading, right? I always get the question, Janine, can I pick your brain? And I always say, if you want to pick my brain, pick up my book, because I literally put everything in there that I can potentially tell you in person. And then I do have the path for our action takers, which is the bootcamp. So many of you guys have been through the bootcamp, and it is gonna be a fun one for the next couple of weeks coming up. So again, all of these we talked about. but you need to have a plan of action, right? It is not good enough anymore to have a plan. You need a plan of action. Personally, I'm obsessed with my bootcamp, as many of you guys know as well, but action is really where you actually start making money, right? Hypotheticals are not good enough these days. Action is where our commissions sit. And last but not least, if you like the workbook, I'm a workbook person. I like to scribble down things. We do have a lot of information coming your way. We do have a completely free, no opt-in workbook that you can get at thehyperlocalagent.com/workbook. All right. Is everybody settled in? Are we good to go? Ready to rock and roll? Okay. I typically like to kick off with one question. And this question came about in one of our classes, and people didn't realize how much it would actually cost them when they didn't take action. So call it the cost of inaction, but I want you to let me know, what is the cost of inaction for you? Okay? Like a real hard number. If I don't show up, if I don't do what I said I was going to do, and I don't get the opportunity for a listing, right? Not even the opportunity. This listing might potentially cost me, insert your number. What is your lost opportunity cost for not getting a listing because you decided not to go to work today? And I know it's very, very harsh, but in a world where everybody is just showing you the glamorous life of, laptop freedom and how I'm selling 100 houses without working more than 20 hours a week, we got to talk about what is really behind the working mechanism, right? And for some of you, it helps to put a number to that. So think about your number. And then really think about, if you go home and say, hey, I'm sorry, I lost an opportunity because I didn't do what I had on my to-do list today. I just lost $8,000 or $10,000. I had a California person on here a couple of weeks back, and she's like, $18,000. I lost $18,000. Can you imagine that? Crazy. All right. So first up, I do like to know, are you a hyperlocal agent yet? So for those of you that are like, oh, well, I don't know, I think I am, or maybe I'm not, we do have a fun free quiz. It's right over at thehyperlocalagent.com/quiz. So feel free to take that. I'm going to type this one into the comments. If you're live, you'll see it there. If you're catching the replay, you got to see it on the screen. And feel free to take it after class. Again, another one of those links you can leave open for later because it's a lot of fun to take. Okay, and figure out if this is already you, because part of what we're going to talk about is obviously becoming a hyperlocal agent, but I want to give you a lot of other ideas as well. So in today's class, you're going to get 50 niches for lead gen. That's a lot. So the 4 areas of focus, and I hope you don't mind if I jump in, because I don't do fluffy webinars or fluffy lunch and learns. I think you came here with a purpose of like, give me the goods and then let me figure out what I want to do. So I try to deliver on that promise. Okay, fair? Yes? Okay. So the 4 areas of focus for us today, right, are location-based, home type-based, demographic-based, and experience-based. And we're going to go through these 4 areas of our focus based on what niches are there. You'd be surprised, and you can probably even find more niches than what I have in here. But first up, we should probably talk about the why, right? Why is this important? Why should we specialize in something? And I'm sure you've heard the statement before. If you're trying to talk to everybody, you're talking to nobody, right? And that's the part where when you have a message that resonates, right, it's just a completely different conversation. Give you an example for going to the doctor, right? When you go to a doctor for something very specific, you like to talk to that doctor about this specific thing, not about the entire body. You go to that doctor for one specific thing, which is great. The generalist, right, is oftentimes overrun with appointments. It's just, like I said, general. And you just don't feel like he really gets what you have a problem with. Anybody ever been to a doctor and experienced that? Right? You feel like, I know I need to talk to somebody that gets it a little bit better than a general practitioner. Well, our sellers and our buyers are not different, right? There is the generalist agent, and let me tell you, I've talked to so many of the generalist agent. Fact of the matter is that they are oftentimes running themselves ragged, right? They're seen as door openers. They're not seen as experts, right? They're just like the way in to get to the next step. And it's kind of the same here. They are seen as the way in, the door opener to get to the next step. You need to be positioning yourself as the next step. Let me know if this makes sense to you, okay? You need to become an expert. People pay experts. If you're talking to a buyer and your value proposition is, I want to show you houses and open a door, that is not valuable today, right? You need expert status. What is your expert status? And that is really what today is going to help with. Make sense, everybody? Let me know yes in the comments. I know. Our live classes are always fun. I make you interact, right? So first up, area of focus number 1, location. I had to start off with location. This is called the hyper-local agent. I mean, you can't spell, local without almost location in it. So location, what is it? Specific location allowing you to really have hyper-local expertise. There it is again, expert status. Okay? If I come to any of your areas, believe me, I want somebody that knows the ins and outs of a neighborhood. I want somebody that can tell me, hey, they do Flamingo Fridays, and here is one that has 3 daycares in the next 5 minutes around that location that might be important to you if you don't want to waste a whole lot of time driving around. I want an expert no matter where I'm going to relocate in the country. Okay, yes, I will do my own research on top, but I'm going to feel really, really good paying that agent a commission if that is the way it ends up being, if I got service beyond what I would consider normal. Okay. Now your focus might be a single neighborhood, a school district, a city, right? It doesn't matter. And we're going to talk about different ones, but having really that knowledge on the market trends, on the amenities, right? On the community highlights, this will make an expert. And this will also make sure that people recommend you more. People recommend experts. They do not recommend as many generalists as they do recommend experts. Makes sense, right? All right. So what is our first niche you could consider? How about you live in a downtown area? I am actually in the Chicagoland area, and I say Chicagoland area. So when people ask me, oh, where do you do business? And I'm like, oh, I'm from Chicago. Would it be the truth? First of all, I do not do any business in Chicago because I do think it's a completely different animal than what we are out here in the suburbs, right? I'm a believer in I'm going to hire an expert and I'm going to refer my buyers to an expert because they do something absolutely crazy down there and they do not have any lockboxes. Like they meet people. And if you've ever tried to park in Chicago, it's a nightmare. No, thank you. So again, if you are looking to be an expert somewhere and you have a downtown area, you can specialize in a downtown and you can just tell them, I am an expert in this area and this is why my clients hire me. I'm not going to try and pretend that I can go and show you houses 20 miles outside of the city boundaries because I'm out of my area. I'm out of my element. Believe me, there's a whole lot of agents doing it. And every time that we have these transactions, the buyers are actually having no clue other than, oh, we talked to a friend. And guess who doesn't get that second business? When they're coming to sell, they're going with that local agent because that city agent completely forgot all about them. It's not on their radar anymore, right? It's not in their vicinity anymore. Out of sight, out of mind. Happens a lot. So that is one of the ones. I wonder if I can put my face in there. I don't think so. Oh, well, I tried. Okay. Is anybody here a downtown agent? Anybody here specializing in downtown? Let me know in the comments. I'm always curious to know if we have any experts on there. Next up, if you are living by a beach, maybe you are the beach front or, in walking distance to a beach expert. That's right. A lot of times when people are near a beach, it is not always a free access beach. And sometimes you have people coming to locate especially for that beach area. Well, wouldn't it make sense to know if you have property? We have a couple properties that are kind of like close by me. And what happens is that you can still have lake right and beach access rights, even if you are not on the lake or on a beach. So, again, when you have this specialized knowledge and that's all you talk about, people will trust that when you show them a house that has the beach rights, right? Even if they're not on the beach, that it makes sense. What if I tell you, hey, I would love to be able to walk to the beach? Okay. You, as an area expert, know, well, there's a big street right here. Probably not a good idea to look beyond that street. If you want to, live anywhere from this street on towards the beach, it's probably going to be 15 minutes. You guys underestimate how valuable this is to a buyer who's moving to an area because of a beach. And if they tell you they want to be walking distance and you are like, well, so about a mile-ish should be okay, you need to have more specialized knowledge. Okay. So I don't have a beach really by me per se where people gravitate towards. But if you are in the Carolinas, for example, there's plenty of opportunities there. Obviously, if you are anywhere on the ocean front there, you have a lot more opportunity there as well. But becoming an expert in that might be what is on your agenda for the next year. Next up, a park or an outdoor feature. I hope everybody recognizes this iconic park, right? But for those of you that have something in your area, and I know many of you are thinking like, well, parks by us are not that special, right? Well, I can tell you I have a very, very suburban neighborhood, and I have some parks, and I have also some houses backing up to the parks. I have houses backing up to open areas, right? I have houses backing up to wooded areas, and there's not a lot of them. And they always go for high demand because of the location. Knowing that you can talk to certain buyers or point out to sellers why this is an incredible feature for their house makes you an expert on this specific thing, right? If you specialize for houses backing up to a giant forest preserve by you, right? If you know more about what it's like to live on the edge of a wildlife preserve, you now are, again, an expert status for that. Next up, a lake or a river. And I'm not a boater. I will say that. So if any boaters are on here, I'm like, I never owned a boat. I like to be on a boat that I don't own, that I can give back when I'm done with the boat and somebody else can, wax it, maintain it, fuel it, and do all of that stuff. But if you are a boater, you want to know certain things when you consider buying on a lake or river. How busy does this river get? How deep is that river, right? Or lake? What can you do? Is it a motorized one to start with? Not every lake is motorized, right? The list goes on and on and on about what you can actually tell somebody who's really interested in lakefront property. So we have a river by us, and it's called Fox River. And Fox River has a lot of houses on there, and there's actually agents specializing only on the waterfront of this river, because when people want to move on the Fox, okay, that's literally what buyers will say, I want to have a house on the Fox. You really have to understand, what are they asking for? And you also have to be able to point out certain things like, yeah, you know what? There's actually an area where there's a dam. Do you want to be above the dam on that river, or do you want to be below the dam on that river? Because there is a difference for certain things. You can become an expert on these things. And if you own a vacation home and you understand what I'm talking about here right now, right? This is hyper local knowledge. And this is what buyers and sellers alike will pay, because you will just simply market properties differently. Okay. All right, everybody jotted that down. If you have that in your area, it's a great one to consider. Next up, school district. That's how I started out personally when I went into my geographic farm. I looked at what do I know? And for me, it was more about the house I was living in and then what's around it. And as I expanded based on school district. So that was my first expansion. I made sure that I just kept as many routes as possible in the school district before I then changed my expansion strategy into zip code, actually. We'll talk about that one too. So, school district. How many people do you know that are coming to your area, your farm, the area you want to be known in, and they come to you because they want to attend the schools? You should probably know a thing about the schools, right? When does, what about elementary school? How many grades are there? What about middle school? What about high school, right? What about the bus transportation? What about the extracurricular? What about the immersion programs? What about the gifted programs? What about the treatment for IEPs and 401, or not 401s, what are the other ones? 504s. What is all of that? Where are the resources? You don't have to have the answers, and I prefer if you don't have the answers from a liability standpoint, but you need to have the resources to point the people in the right direction. Does that make sense, everybody? Yes, I know. Some of you are sitting there thinking like, wow, that's a lot of work. Yes, research can be a lot of work. Once you have it down pat, you have done the hard lifting, and now it's just a matter of really positioning it in a way that screams, you are an expert. All right, if that makes sense, we're good. I hope those pens are scribbling, and that's why nobody's saying, yes, I understand. Okay, good. Take the head nods. Okay. Next up, neighborhood. That is where most agents are really thinking, I want to start farming, I'm going to farm a neighborhood, right? It is the most common way to go into geographic farming is by selecting a neighborhood. Now, a couple of weeks ago, and you find it on our podcast channel, I've done a podcast episode about the false belief of making six figures inside your neighborhood. People underestimate how big your neighborhood has to be to pull out six figures and more out of that geographic farm. Okay. I'll see if I can find it and we can link it maybe or something, but it's on our podcast, it's on our YouTube channel, because I've had agents oftentimes come to me and say, well, my neighborhood is like 250 houses, 300 houses. And I want to sell all the houses in there. Well, that first off is impossible. Nobody will get 100% of the market share. Okay. But if you look at the neighborhood size in order for you to reach your income goals, again, check out that podcast one, but you can niche down on a neighborhood. Okay. For us, when we look at our neighborhoods, I look at one neighborhood being actually multiple subdivisions. So think about terms like the north area of town, the west area of town, the south area of town, right? You can group more together to get really the size you need. But a neighborhood is the most common way for agents to get into niching down. Next up, golf courses. Do you know how many agents I have told to specialize in golf courses? It doesn't have to be hard. If you like golf, anybody here likes golf? Maybe. If you like golf and your goal is to either retire on a golf course, live on a golf course, maybe you already live on a golf course, you are knowing everything about it, right? You can help people evaluate if a golf course community is right for them. You can create resources based on the top 10 golf courses to move to in 2025. You have a lot of different ways to leverage this level of expertise. And I've talked to so many agents about it. Guess how many actually took the action to become known on a golf course community golfer? I don't think any of them so far. Because it's not about, oh, that sounds like a great idea. It's about what? Taking the action, right? And with 50 niches, what did I say when we started out? I don't want you to pick 50 niches. I want you to take one and I want you to run with it. Okay? Take the action. So, golf courses. Can you find out all the golf courses in your area that you're working in and put a list together? Compiling information is probably the most undervalued thing that we see as relevant. I mean, you can certainly hunt down all the golf courses, but why do all the work if a real estate agent already did that and is now bringing out videos on, hey, today I am coming to you from this golf course, which has 18 holes. This is something that's really cool about it. One of the things I don't like is this. So here's one of the houses, by the way, that you can see from all the way over here. Wouldn't it be cool to live on a golf course? Right? And start bringing in leads that are interested in that niche of living on a golf course. Make sense? Yes? All right, now go tell your golfing real estate buddy about this strategy if that's not you, and help out another real estate friend. Okay? So, easy enough to do. Golf courses. I don't golf, otherwise I would be all over this one because it's just such an easy way. All right, subdivisions. So you heard me say earlier, subdivisions, right? Neighborhoods, very similar. The subdivisions are, a little smaller, on the smaller scale oftentimes. And yes, you can have multiple subdivisions. You can go ahead and learn about the subdivision. Who built it, right? When were they built? What is the square footage on average for these subdivisions? You can really dive deep into a subdivision itself. What amenities are located in the subdivision? How many parks are in the subdivision? What school districts are serving that subdivision? What stores are located in that subdivision? And the list goes on and on and on and on, right? So subdivision is another way to niche down. Next up, zip codes. This was my expansion strategy as I started growing from the school district into the subdivision, into the neighborhood itself then. And now I'm at the zip code standpoint. So my expansion strategy actually went over a bunch of these as a progression, okay? So I always get asked, like, how many houses do you farm? And when I tell them over 5,000, they're like, oh my gosh. I'm like, yes, but it didn't start there, right? It started with a subdivision, actually just 100 houses out of that subdivision, trying to figure out what do I do, realizing this wasn't enough, expanding to then the neighborhood, expanding based on school district, and then expanding based on zip code. And now the entire zip code of 5,600 homes is what I now farm. Do I want to stop there? We'll see. We'll see. Because what comes after zip codes? The entire city. Yes, a little bit overly ambitious. I think my city right now is comprised of 4 or 5 different zip codes. So you see how an expansion model for me would be like, add 1 zip code, got this one, add a second zip code. Okay, once I have established that one, I would then go expand from there. So you see how expansion can work in a very, very fun way. Same with your golf courses. I'm going to bring it back to the golf courses. I still hope somebody takes me up on the golf course thing, right? But you can start on 1 golf course and then expand to the second and then expand to the third. You don't have to expand to all 20 golf courses around you. Okay? Expansion is a fun concept of growing your real estate business and reach. Next up, a suburb. Now, I live in the northwest suburbs of Chicago, okay? So for me to say I serve the northwest suburbs, I do, and I will drive within the northwest suburbs, and then we got the southwest suburbs, and then we got the western suburbs, and we have different kind of like directional things. And I'm sure your area has something fairly similar, right? There's always a way where locals are categorizing, classifying, and saying things that you know in conversation exactly what they mean. You know what they're talking about. And that really is where the suburbs come in. It's just more of a grouping for bigger areas. Okay, so for especially those that have a little bit more rural living going on. And that is obviously part of our very last point here. Yes, our rural people. You guys asked all the time, how do I go about farming? Because I live in the middle of nowhere. Well, that's really hard. I get that, right? When you are having to drive really, really far to get from one house to the other, it makes farming harder. But you can still talk about it on a really big level. And you can still get them together on a, this county neighbors meetup. And you can do other things that are just at a different scale. So that is for our county. You can go as big as that county. I wouldn't do it here because the county I'm in is literally so big. There's no way, unless I have like $1 million advertising budget a month, that I would be covering that. So, all right. Now, wrapping up area number 1 for location. And I gave you a lot of different things here. Let's actually go back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I just gave you 12 different niches on this one thing. 12. I think there is maybe something in it that would make sense for you to really look at and be like, I want to focus in on this. Feel free to use the comments. I can help you best if I see it. Otherwise, I'm just going to continue on with the next one. Because the next one is talking all about the home type. Okay, what type of home? And this is where it gets fun, because when you have an area of focus, especially as it comes to location, you can now start stacking on the next area of focus. So what does it mean? So for example, I could focus in on the location, okay, as my base, and be like, okay, I want to focus in on this zip code, and I want to focus in on all the one stories, all the ranches. And when you start adding certain things into the mix, right, you're stacking the area of focus, you can now talk differently to people in your messaging. You can now target people in a much, much deeper level for your copy that you use in your marketing pieces. Make sense? But first up, I like to focus on location. It just makes it so much easier on your car, on your time, and frankly, on just everybody in your life, okay? I've had calls from school where I'm like, hey, Mrs. Sassel, can you come and pick up your son? He's not feeling well. If I'm 2 hours away, what am I gonna do? If I'm an hour away, what am I gonna do? Having a hyper local area helps me also help my family function better. I hope that explains some of the reasons why I went into it and where I think it's just so much easier to do life. Most people do life in a 5-mile radius. Did you know that? Most people do life in a 5-mile radius. Pay attention what you do. If it wasn't for real estate, where are your doctors located? Where do your kids go to school? Where do you have extracurricular activities? Where do you go grocery shopping? Where are you on a general basis, right? Date nights, going out to eat. What do you do on a general basis? How far out do you go most of the time? And you will notice that you also do life on a 5-mile radius, because we're all having the same struggle. We're all right now way too busy, right? And that is really where location comes in. I hope that makes sense for you, because we're going to move on to the next area type or focus, which is home type. So home type, right? Focusing on a specific home type, it really helps you cater to your unique buyers and sellers a lot better. You can have a home type from luxury, right? Historic homes, condos, townhomes, new construction. We're going to cover a lot of these, but it helps you also to position yourself as an expert for that category, right? You understand how to market these types of homes better. You can also assist better with things like inspections, and you can tailor your experiences for your buyers and sellers a lot better as well. So that is what we're going to cover in this one. And remember, stacking is a possibility. Okay. So first up, what if you are specializing in fixer-uppers? Think back about Area 1. What if you focus on the county and then locating fixer-uppers in that county? Now we just stacked, and now we have a phenomenal way for you to target fixer-uppers in that county. Make sense? Yes. How do you find fixer-uppers? Well, there are a lot of classes on that. I am not a fixer-upper hunter-downer, but obviously driving for dollars is still a big, big thing. Okay, so when people are looking for fixer-uppers, a lot of these investors, they do oftentimes still drive for dollars. There's a lot of other strategies that they implement. Again, feel free to Google that. But fixer-uppers obviously also need a strategy. You need to have a plan when you approach these. Oftentimes it's something like cash for keys. I'm like, yeah, it's been abandoned, right? I'm like, hey, I give you this if you give me that deed. There's certain ways about it, but you can work on fixer-uppers. And I took that out because it's not my forte. So I'm like, let's dive into some more things that I personally would enjoy more. Home type 2, condos or townhomes. Especially for condos, and I probably should have put a high-rise building on there. I've had a listing appointment at a seller's house, and they were telling me about where they're going to, and they have an agent in that state. It's a different state. I'm not licensed in that state. And one of the things that they said was, we really love how much he knows about each and every building and the co-ops that we are looking in, because that is so, so valuable. Okay. So condos or townhomes, you can absolutely specialize in that. I have in my, again, zip code, right? I have townhome communities, and believe me that I know more about this townhome community than most other agents, because it is one of my specialties. So you see how we're stacking on some of these niches. And when you look at the townhomes, are they rentable? What is the average HOA fee, right? Are there any amenities? How's the board in general? Let's see, what else do we got? Are there, is there a clubhouse? Is there a pool? Is there a school in walking distance, or do they get school bus service? You have so many things that you can talk about differently if you know that subdivision. And that is what most agents are lacking. Good thing you showed up today, because it won't be you. You know what to add into your expertise. Now here's another one, lofts. And honestly, I was hoping to find a picture. I don't know if you guys have that in the area you are at. However, there are certain communities where you could have, for example, a house with an airplane hangar. Okay, how fun would that be? So this one here, yes, it says loft, and I was thinking more about, we have car garages actually. So you can literally have a house, like, I don't know if I can describe it really, but you have your garage right there, and it's very open like this. So it's like your car garage is like standing here where the living room would be, and then like the living area is right above. It's like for the crazy car enthusiasts. I think they're like the Porsche garages in Naperville or something like that. Okay. But you can specialize in that. If you go to every single car meet that's out there anyhow, and you want to literally move in with your car, why not niche down to this? I can tell you every single thing about living with your vehicle for your way of transportation, right? It sounds crazy, but it's out there. Lofts, traditional lofts, such as this one here, right? If this is what you want to specialize in, a nice building, super high ceilings, again, you probably know who this is for. Would I move in there with 2 kids? Probably not, right? But if you're specializing in this, you know who this is for. You know what the pluses are. You know how to sell this as an expert. All right, next up, ranches. Well, ranches come in all different sizes and shapes. And again, I'm going to use my own farm just as an example. I can tell you that there are a few different variations of a ranch. I can also tell you that there should be only about 3 ranches in a certain neighborhood with a basement of that one particular style. They're like literally the rarest of the rare. And I just saw one last summer, I think, for the first time in over a decade. And it wasn't even on the market. It was somebody in my garage sale that said, oh no, we actually have a basement. And I'm like, they come with basements? And one of the comments was, well, there's actually just 3 of us that have a basement in a subdivision of hundreds of houses. And again, how would I find out about it if it wasn't through conversation with a resident, right? Because there was no builder plans on this particular thing. It's crazy. But again, knowing what type of layouts are available, if somebody says, I really want to downsize to a ranch home in the zip code, got it, awesome, no problem. So here are actually a couple different layouts. And if you look at these, is there anything in particular that you already like and don't like? And then point out, I mean, we're already limiting it down, based on ranch style. If we limit it down now more to a floor plan, you may not be moving in the next 3.5 years to 10 years. But if you look at these, is there anything in particular that you think would be working really well for you? This is what an expert conversation could look like, right? All right, lake houses. Yes, living on a lake. You heard me talk about this inside the location area already, right? Specializing for lake or riverfront properties. And it's going to come up here again as well. You can specialize not just on the houses that have rights to the lake, but directly sit on the front of it. And another great way for farming, if you have obviously just these lake houses, right? You can get the addresses, and you can just make sure that you keep sending things to these people, keep them updated on values on the lake, keep them updated on happenings on the lake, right? What is on the agenda for the lake, keep them updated on the maintenance part of the lake. All of these things are valuable to people that live on the lake. Okay, they may not live there all the time, but they are still getting mail. So make sure that they are going to associate you with the expert for that lake. Super easy. I think that's a super easy way to brand yourself. Next up, new construction. Again, new construction is not super common here in my area. A lot of it is custom builders that we have. We do have some communities that get pulled up, but nothing like some of you guys are experiencing out by you guys. I've actually had somebody onto our mastermind, and he's a new construction expert. He's built actually a national website for new construction. And they said that there are so many new construction communities that aren't even listed in our MLS. So when you have small little builders that are building out, 3 to 10 to 20 community lots, you don't see them sometimes in the MLS. So knowing what home types are available, what new construction is like in your area, he's created this website where you can then claim an area and start building out the different new construction areas. But if somebody is really looking to move into new construction, highlighting the different things that a builder will offer, such as, hey, they're doing a special on interest rate, or they're doing a special on upgrades, or they're doing a special on the lot location, or hey, they're releasing the first phase, or they're releasing the second phase, or they're releasing the third phase. All of these things can be very, very valuable to people buying new construction. Now, new construction also is not very, commonly known with what is the process. So breaking down the process can be super valuable. And we have a guide that we use for new construction because there's a lot to know. Most people just think, oh, it's new, everything's got to be perfect. And as you know, the number one thing should never, ever skip during a purchase of new construction is the home inspection. Now, you know that, I know that, and no buyer thinks this is a great idea. So having all of these conversations and really understanding what it is about is so valuable, because you're debunking a very common myth about new construction. New construction is not perfect, right? Giving them advice on taking pictures on the pre-framing or on the plumbing or on, anything that is really related to the house and how it can help with the process down the road. You are the guide on this, and you can really release a lot of special content on this to become known as an expert. Gated communities. Oh, those are fun. Now, if you are a geographic farmer, then you do know the struggles with gated communities, and they are a very heavy no soliciting oftentimes, right? So you don't want to get in there, solicit and door knock and do all of those things and then get kicked out. That's like a bad reputation, right? So oftentimes people come to me because they want to actually mail them. If you can't knock on their doors, they're like, let me knock on their mailbox. I'm like, okay. So gated communities, again, very similar to our townhomes and condos, understanding the nuances of that gated community, right? What about the pool? We have one, and we don't really have gated communities per se, but things such as if this is a gated community and you have, let's say it's a 55 and plus community, okay? And if you have rules on visitation for your grandchildren, if you have rules on when grandchildren that can visit can use the pool, okay? Those things are important oftentimes to people moving into these communities, right? I love my grandkids. I want my grandkids to be with me. Can they use the pool? If you are an agent that can answer these types of questions, you are in much, much better shape. All right, looks like we got to pick it up here a little bit. Specialty homes, right? What are specialty homes? Well, Victorians, mid-century modern. We've got, just really interesting castles. How about castles? Churches, right? Anything that's a specialty home, if you are looking for this, especially like Victorians, I think that's a big one. And then the mid-century modern ones, I happen to live in one, and I bought it from the mid-century modern expert in my area. He literally will list the most mid-century modern homes, and his following is based on people that love to talk about and live in and see mid-century modern homes. So yes, he is all over the place. I personally would hate to be listing all over the place. However, his price point for these very special types of homes is oftentimes extremely high. Okay, so gotta consider that. I like to stick around hyper locally. He likes to stick around really cool houses. I guess we all have our thing. So next up, single family homes. It is a type of home, so hence I had to mention it here. Farms. I think farms come with a lot of things, such as, what is it producing? What about the fields? What's rented? There's a lot of specialty knowledge that you can bring to the table if you are working farms. Oceanfront, okay, that's a big one to know. If there's anything going on the ocean, you probably are the person to know about it. Luxury properties, yes, I know everybody wants to farm luxury properties. At the end of the day, they're just people. They want their house marketed, and they don't want to hear the same, oh, I'm going to put it in the MLS and put a sign in the yard. Be innovative, come with something cool. They're just people, and they need an agent that actually shows up and works. And then the last one we have here is vacation homes or Airbnbs, okay? Knowing what can be turned into an Airbnb, know what actually is of interest to people that are doing Airbnbs, that is valuable to people. So let's move on to, one last one, commercial. I don't do commercial, but yes, if you want to specialize in commercial, I do think specializing is a good thing. I wouldn't mix and mingle residential with commercial, but if you are interested in the commercial side, that is obviously also something to consider. All right, now that we're done on that one, let's move on to the demographic. And before we get into the demographic, targeting a specific demographic does mean tailoring services to meet the unique needs of a particular group, such as first-time buyers, downsizing, seniors, family, right? And understanding their lifestyle, style, financial situation, anything that is really relevant to them. I will point out that specializing in a demographic is not discrimination. You are not turning down somebody because they are not fitting your demographic target. You're still going to work with them, right? So if you have somebody that is military, but your focus is first-time buyers that are non-military, right? You're still going to help the military family. So I normally don't have to say anything like that, but sometimes I get the question of, isn't that a protected class? You're not eliminating working with anybody else, okay? You're just focusing your marketing on a specific group. If you end up targeting people that are not within your specific group and they want to work with you, you're still going to work with them. Okay, so let's talk about our dearest beloved millennials. Yes, all the young kids, you can absolutely target them. Probably a good idea to obviously have a really strong social channel built out that connects with them. However, I just had this conversation with somebody. Because they grew up with technology to them is not of interest. It is just as commonly used for them like we see reading a book, right? They're like, a book, what's that? There's actually a building with thousands of books. It's called a library. This is crazy. Again, millennials are special, right? I'm a millennial, technically speaking. I don't think I'm a millennial, but according to the classification of the age group, I'm a millennial. I disagree, but again, I'm at this weird in between. I think some of you may know what I'm talking about. But you can focus in on them. Next up, Generation X. Now, I personally associate a lot more with that generation. We grew up with computers. We're pretty savvy on a lot of things, right? But we also like to pay for speed. So next up, baby boomers. Again, these are definitely people that I think should be on a lot of people's agenda for targeting, because when you look at the NAR statistics of who actually is the number one seller, okay, look it up, see what the report says. It says that most of these are baby boomers. They're the ones holding the inventory. You want to work with people that are holding the inventory, okay? That's just my 2 cents on this. All right. Next up, newlyweds. If you want to hang out at a bridal expo and have a booth there because you want to target newlyweds, you probably have a good chance of getting more business for newlyweds. The whole demographic part of it is probably a little difficult, but again, or the geographic part of it, right? Because sometimes people come to these expos from all over the place, and then they are going to tell you, well, we want to buy here and buy there, and all of a sudden you have a lot on your hands. So I think sometimes the location part can be a little challenging, but you could focus in on newlyweds, okay? And of course, there is the counterpart, which is our D4Cs. I do think when somebody is in a situation like that, it's really good for you to understand what these people are going through, right? So if you have personally been through it, I think you have a different level of expertise in this specific thing than somebody that hasn't gone through it. So just, again, some things to consider on your personal life experiences and how it could potentially benefit you for your lead gen. Next up, widowers, again, knowing what support groups there are, helping them cope, right? Helping them understand what is now their responsibility for the maintenance of the home that was previously maintained by their spouse, for example. There's a lot of things coming down the pipeline for some people that are hard. And if you're an expert in this kind of thing, I'm not saying ambulance chaser, please don't be an ambulance chaser. I'll tell you my personal experience with that one. I've had a listing appointment from one of my past clients, and we sat down, and she said, yeah, I had this agent stop by. I was mowing the grass, and she gave me a card the week after my husband, after we buried my husband. And one of her nieces looked at the card and said, that's an ambulance chaser. And the look on my client's face was just awful. She said, like, you mean people look for this kind of situation to then leave a business card? That's what she did. She left a business card. And it was just the horror on her face. Like, I will never forget that face. And I'm like, and she was like near tears. She's like, she couldn't believe it. And I'm like, well, some people do go about business like this. So I think that it is a possible niche. You just got to approach it with a lot more tact and class. I think then handing somebody a business card on the lawn, being like, hey, if you need to sell your house, let me know. It was just not done really well, I guess. All right. Next up, singles. Yes, right? Looking to live in whatever town where you have a lot of activity. That's a possible way to go about it too. Of course, we already talked about the newlyweds. I do think they're a little bit different than our married people. International clients, that's another way to go about demographics. And I know I'm speeding it up a little bit. Single parents, there is a whole lot of stuff going on this one, right? A lot of support that needs to be built up. Economic status, that one is, let's say you have, right now I'm doing this one here, and they just released the $40,000 grant, or student forgiveness, whatever not, that is currently out there. Again, if your demographic is targeting people that may still carry a decent amount of student debt and might be in the position to purchase a house, targeting those people to tell them about this new loan scenario that's available might be a good way to get some more business, right? If this is what you are looking to niche down on. Again, know your niches. I personally wouldn't be looking for buyers, so that's not a niche for me to target. But again, knowing all the options is a big one. So hopefully that helps some of you guys to think, how can I leverage what lenders are putting in front of me for niching down? Next up, employment. All right, we discussed some of these already a little bit, but what if you wanted to target doctors, right? What if you wanted to target construction workers or more blue collar, right? What if you wanted to target people in the IT business? Having employment as an option, I think, is an interesting way to also niche down, especially with the doctor loans and everything that's out there, right? And of course, then we got military in general, right? You have really an option to make a difference with, I've had military clients, and we don't have a huge base here, but I think it's one of the funnest ways to end a transaction when you say, hey, thanks for purchasing a house, and here's money back, just because you structured the deal that they actually walked away from the closing table with money, okay? All right, which brings us then to our last and final area of niching down, which is all about experience, right? Niche experience is based on really experiences that allows you to stand out by offering those specialized skills or services. And it might be, probates, it might be investments, it might be relocation assistance, short sales. When you have really specialized knowledge on something, it can help build the reputation as a trusted advisor in that specialty. And apparently I didn't change this one, should say experience, but you get the point. Looks like I gotta change all of those. So area 4, you can ignore the demographic. It should say experience in all of them. So let's just pretend I didn't have a typo in there. So first up, renters. When you are specializing in getting renters to become first-time buyers, right, you can really hone in on the messaging. Now, going back to our first area of focus, right, which was location, what if you're going to combine location with finding out where the renters are? How do you do that? You look for, okay, where's an absentee owner? And then if the owner is absent, chances are this might be a rental property, right? And you can then target those. If your MLS is listing rental properties, you can also just pull a list of rental properties that have been rented, and you can focus in on that. A lot of different ways, I think, to go about it. Next up, first-time buyers. If you are looking to help first-time buyers, you know that the questions first-time buyers have are typically always the same. So hosting things that are helping them can become really, really important. What if their experience is that of a first-time seller? I just had a first-time seller, and let me tell you, the questions that came up on that one were mind-blowing to me because it's been a while since I've had a first-time seller. If you think your first-time sellers are just like your, second, third time over sellers, you are mistaken. I'm like, the amount of questions I've gotten, I've appreciated all of these questions because it really helped me hone in on my first-time seller experience in a much, much better way than what I delivered to my, veteran sellers per se. Next up, move up buyers or even move up sellers, followed, of course, by the move down buyers or the move down sellers. These are different animals, and that is based on experience. If all of your clients, I have a lot of clients, and they typically downsize. Let me tell you, I have resources available for them to really help through the downsizing process. Downsizing is hard. Upsizing is also hard, right? It's a little less hard than the downsizing, but both of these are definitely requiring you to start thinking things through. Then you can offer up advice on foreclosures. And this is one of the things that I always think, if you're looking at geographic farming, foreclosures happen in any market cycle, right? And when they happen, they oftentimes happen with a lot of emotions attached to it. Not many of these good. Sometimes people just made a bad choice. Sometimes people lost a job and couldn't find a new one, right? Sometimes people got sick. Whatever the circumstance is, oftentimes foreclosures tend to come with a lot of emotions. And knowing a lot of these things behind the scenes can really help you get the ball rolling. Be a resource. Next up, the experience of a for sale by owner, okay? Most of us will approach for sale by owners in a very helpful manner. There's not many agents that still approach them as a matter of, hey, you're not going to sell your house on your own, you need my help, because they realize, well, it's probably not a good idea. Expireds, that's another one to focus on, and I think they are going to be definitely huge for the next couple of months for sure. So put that one on the list. I know it's on ours. And then investors. So that is the final one. We discussed 50 different niches. That's a lot. And for those of you that made it all the way through, I promised you stay on. I'm going to give you that link for the class resource. So let me see if I can pull that one up for you, and then I'll drop it in the chat. There it is. All right, copy. And then let me know how was class. Feel free to text the word review. Just hit the word review, just text, and we'll text you back a link. And then in the chat, there is what I'm going to drop you next. So if you are not on live and you're catching the replay, you're going to have to take a screenshot here in a second. But I hope you have a focus, okay? I hope you have a focus on what you want to focus on. This one here is really what we've went over in so many ways. So if you want to grab the link, it's in the chat. If not, here's your screenshot opportunity. 50 niches for your real estate leads. You can combine some of them to create subcategories. You can go one by one and focus on that. So a lot of different ways to leverage that one. And of course, if you want to do some of that, diving deeper on them with mailers, I think it's an easy way to reach some of these niches. I personally have two options for you to do that. For me, mailers, it's either the 5-day mailer bootcamp, or if you want to pick my brain, right? I've been sending 60,000 mailers on average a year as a solo agent, very successfully with a 10x return. Again, you can just jump through our mailer bootcamp. Now, if you get the book, it comes with a complimentary bootcamp ticket, so you don't have to worry about it. That's mailermombook.com. And then this one here is the bootcamp for our action takers, which is mailerbootcamp.com. So the 30-day class, if it's still saying coming soon, we haven't completed it yet. If it's live, you'll see another button down there, which is our Netflix class pass, where you can get access to classes like this one that we've done. There's a ton of them on there, and it's just kind of our Netflix pass. It is a 30-day access pass. It's not a membership, okay? So that pass is really just there for you to gain access, have 30 days. It's called a deadline. Use it or lose it. And check out some of the other classes that you are looking to catch up on. So that's the part where now it's your turn to figure out, where do I go from here? What do I need to do next to actually get into action? Thank you guys so much for joining me on another Lunch and Learn. And I'm gonna have to grab some water. That was a whole lot of talking today, but again, lots of niches, and it's time for you to figure out, what do you want to be known for? Because specializing is needed for this to work. So, all right, thanks for joining, and I'll see you soon.